Rain taps the window, then drums, then owns the room. Mia Harlow stares at a dark phone. It should have lit up by now. Her brother always checks in. He builds his life out of checklists and texts. Fuel canister, extra filter, bear spray on both hip belts. A joke about instant mashed potatoes. A grin that says everything is under control, not tonight. He'll ping, her roommate says from the kitchen doorway. Casual, city logic. People miss trains, miss sunsets, miss calls. The world keeps going. Not Caleb, not in the Cascades, not with 4 friends depending on him. She opens the last photo, easy past trailhead, fur trunks like columns. Washington green pressing in from every side, 5 faces, arms hooked over shoulders. Caleb in the middle, curly hair under a beanie. Dylan, all angles and easy laughter. Marcus with linebacker shoulders and teacher eyes. Behind them, Sophia, sketchbook bulging the mesh pocket, and Riley, the nurse, steady as a metronome. Back Sunday, the text had said, "Love you." She typed a thumbs up then. It felt enough. It feels like nothing now. She dials the park number because ritual beats helplessness. A calm voice answers, North Cascades Dispatch. Ranger Cole, professional warmth. It's the tone of a person trained to carry other people's fear without letting it spill. Mia gives the facts: trailhead, blue van, 2 tents, food for 3 days, planned loop, 5 experienced hikers. Last contact was the morning photo. Delays happen, Cole says. Service is a mess up there. We'll log it and send a patrol. She hangs up and stands in the doorway to the rain. The street smells like wet bark and bus brakes. Somewhere a siren curls between buildings and thins to nothing. She thinks about the map on Caleb's wall. Red string, post-its, trails he'd circled. Trails he'd crossed out after fire seasons. Trails he swore they'd do when work calms down, which never really happens but sometimes pretends to. The phone rings again. The van is at the trailhead, unlocked. Wallets and phones in a day pack, like a scene paused mid-sentence. Mia listens to the quiet after the sentence ends. Quiet can be louder than thunder if you let it. Search and rescue spins up. Helicopters are requested. Ground teams notified. Weather isn't good, but weather rarely is when you really need it not to be. At the ranger station, maps crowd a table. Topographic lines lean together like whispers. Volunteers sign in with shorthand that tells a whole history. Miles they can carry, terrain they can read, certs they can wield when it matters. Old-timers nod to each other without a lot of words. New faces watch and learn the choreography of urgency. Cole meets Mia by the doorway. He's the kind of tired that never complains, the kind that can still make room for someone else. "We search smart," he says. "Route, last seen, conditions. That's our triangle. We work it. You try to rest." She won't. She can't. She says okay. Dawn arrives as a lighter shade of gray. Helicopters beat at low clouds. Ground teams move through deadfall and sallow like careful questions. They call the names aloud because names tether people to the world. Caleb, Dylan, Marcus, Sophia, Riley. The forest eats sound. The forest always has. They find boot marks near the trailhead kiosk. They find where someone leaned a pack briefly against a stump and left a dark imprint in moss. They find a grocery receipt in the door pocket of the van. They do not find 5 friends. A ridge makes you feel small. A gulch makes you feel missing. A hiker on a parallel trail told a ranger he'd heard shouting yesterday, carried on the wind. Maybe hay. Maybe help. The report sits 2 canyons away, up and over a saddle. It's the kind of lead that takes time you can't afford and costs energy you can't invoice. They go anyway. Rain thins to a steady mist that coats eyelashes and hope at the same rate. The dog team works a bench below the pass. One dog circles, whines, loses the thread in Devil's Club that slaps at pant legs like a grudge. At the command tent, someone sets out muffins. No one is hungry. People eat anyway because chewing is a way to stay in a body. The news vans arrive and idle like patient animals. A producer asks if they can get a quick word. Mia looks at the camera lens and sees her own fear looking back. She says nothing. The producer retreats, whispering into a phone about B-roll. A team radios in a small find. An orange whistle lying where the trail gives way to brush. Not the one Caleb carries. A cheaper one, cracked at the mouth. It isn't nothing. It is the opposite of nothing. It proves a mouth blew into it, and air moved through it, and someone hoped sound would travel farther than it does in these hills. Cole kneels over the map and traces a line with his finger. If they came down off the ridge here, they would feel like they chose it, but terrain chooses more than people do. Terrain sells its decisions cheap and people call it luck. Evening edges in. Storms teach the day how to end early. The teams stage out. You don't fix 5 missing by making 6 more. The station smells like wet rope and coffee that's committed to being coffee even if no one loves it. Mia sits on a cot and watches a clock. She doesn't remember lying down. She doesn't remember standing up. She keeps moving because standing still feels like sealing something in amber. They bring in extra eyes, not just the parks. A local wildlife photographer rolls in a case with careful hands. He introduces himself as Jordan. He doesn't waste words. He unfolds a drone. He checks a battery. He nods once to Cole. It's the nod of a person who trusts the work more than his own opinion. The drone lifts, becomes a gnat in a wide sky. Its image blooms on a small screen. Fog ribboning across black evergreen, gray granite, white cuts where water goes when it remembers gravity. Jordan flies like someone reading a familiar paragraph out loud. There, he says, not triumphant, not showy. Just a dot in the corner of the frame that does not belong to rocks or trees or river. A blue that is not wildflower. A shape that was once a tent, and then weather and time and friction wrote over it in a rougher pen. Coordinates, radios, reroutes. The tent opens its ruined mouth to a circle of headlamps and the whole ravine listens. The fabric is slick and old. The logo half-ghosted but legible enough to punch breath out of the chest that recognizes it. Inside, the small archaeology of interrupted life. A wrapper, a cheap metal spoon, a sketchbook with damp pages that want to hold images anyway, a keychain with a chipped clover. Names form in throats without permission. 10 feet off, the slope breaks and timber teeth show. A boarded mouth. A shaft that belonged to somebody a long time ago and never really stopped belonging to the dark. Boards were pried once by hands that believed the inside would be safer than the outside. Recently, someone else pried again. Air spills out of the gap, the kind of cold that knows stone. They put meters on belts and helmets on heads. They anchor ropes to what will hold. The first rescuer slides into dark on a slow exhale. Boots scuff old rails. Light takes inventory. A bed made of leaves slept in more than once. A tin can that remembers heat. A wall where symbols were scratched because pens end and people still need to be recorded by the world. Pages, a journal. Sophia's sketches, glacial stream notch in the ridge, a map of the gulch drawn in quick strokes that look steady because they had to be. Entries from a different hand before that. Marcus, Day numbers like fence posts, avalanche, pass blocked, Dylan's ankle, Caleb's ribs suspect, Riley strong, Sophia what she always is, quiet competency with ink. Rationing, weather, arguments you have kindly when your world has shrunk to the size of breath. Then the line no one can unsee, voices outside, minors help, the handwriting changes, the sentence stops mid-stride, they find something else at the threshold half buried in damp, another whistle, Orin, a twin of the first, only more broken. A line between 2 points is a story, it might be a path. Cole glances at the timber, at the long mouth of dark, at the faces of his team. By the book, he says. The book is discipline. The book is why people go home. Mia stands at the edge where her 2 worlds meet and argue. In one world her brother texts dumb jokes and eats freeze-dried stroganoff and complains about elk ruining his shot. In the other world, a mouth in the earth breathes cold air, and the fabric of a tent becomes a blue she will recognize in any store for the rest of her life. Rain pauses. The ravine holds its breath. The drone hums like a small question that refuses to quit. The journal ends with a warning that never finished. 2 whistles mark a path that goes somewhere. The mind breathes like something alive. The forest listens the way a courtroom does when someone stands up to swear they'll tell the truth. Mia closes her eyes. She pictures the map on Caleb's wall. She pictures a red string pulled taut to a place no one circled. She opens her eyes and does the only thing a person can do when the ground under a life gives way. She steps closer. The warning cuts off. The whistles align into a line no one wants to trace in the dark. The shaft exhales cold like a secret rehearsing its first word. The tent was proof. The journal was proof. Proof cuts both ways. It says they lived. It says they were lost. It doesn't say where they went after. At the ranger station, the map room smelled like wet paper and burnt coffee. Laminated topo sheets spread across tables, heavy with pushpins, grease pencil marks, and red string that looked like veins. Cole leaned over the main map. His hands were steady. His jaw was not. They didn't get far without the tent, he said, which means whatever happened, it happened fast. The others nodded. Search techs, volunteers, a meteorologist who looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. Everyone's eyes landed on the weather charts pinned to the far wall. The Cascades are brutal because they change their mind every hour. A sunny trailhead can become a whiteout summit before you finish a sandwich. The week of the disappearance, an early-season storm had muscled its way south, dumping snow at elevations too low for September. A freak event, but not impossible. Nothing is impossible up here. The meteorologist tapped a printout. Window closed early. Ridge lines iced. Avalanches likely. Cole rubbed his temples. They knew how to handle weather, but even pros get punished if the sky flips the script. Mia stood in the doorway, arms folded. She was listening, but also not. Maps were abstractions. Her brother was not. She saw his face in every contour line. Still, a volunteer pointed out, why didn't they trigger the beacon? They had one. The room fell quiet. The beacon was gospel. Lost hikers die with broken bones, empty bottles, frostbitten hands, but not with a beacon unused. Caleb drilled everyone on that. One tech cleared his throat. Unless it was damaged in a fall or buried in snow, or he didn't finish the sentence. Cole circled an area on the map with his marker. Devil's Stare, that gulch. Steep, narrow, prone to rockfall. If they were forced down there, the signal may never have cleared the canopy. Jordan, the wildlife photographer, hovered by the screen showing his drone footage. He scrolled frame by frame, adjusting the zoom. The blue of the tent was obvious, but then something else caught his eye. A streak in the snow line above the gulch. Not natural, not weather. A drag mark, faint but consistent, as if something heavy had slid or been pulled toward the tree line. "Look," he said, tapping the screen. "Right here." The room bent over the monitor. Cole exhaled through his teeth. "That's not wind, that's not animals either." Mia felt her stomach twist. "Dragged," she whispered. No one wanted to say yes. Back on the wall, the meteorologist shuffled more papers. Avalanche paths lined up with that storm, several chutes above the gulch. They could have been caught, funneled down, carried into the worst possible place. And the voices, one ranger asked. The journal said miners, help. That word hung in the air like smoke. Cole marked another X on the map. Old claimed sites, some collapsed, some sealed, but not all. There's a network down there. Abandoned tunnels, hand dug in the 1800. They're not on visitor maps, they barely exist on ours. He looked at the team. If they found a way in, maybe they thought it was shelter, maybe someone else already used it. Silence again. A silence thicker than storm cloud. Then the radio crackled. A ground team calling in from the ridge line. Breathless voices, static breaking their words, but one sentence came through clear. "We've found tracks, multiple sets, fresh." Cole's eyes shot to the map. Fresh. Less than 48 hours, the voice confirmed. Boot treads, not SAR issue, not hiker tread we recognize. Mia pressed a hand to her mouth. The lost five had been gone for years. The tent was ancient, the journal damp and ruined. But someone was moving in that gulch now. The ranger station felt smaller. The walls leaned in. Cole drew a slow breath. If there are tracks, then somebody's using that valley. Somebody who knew about the mine, maybe still does. Jordan zoomed out the drone feed one more time, past the tent, past the timber, to the far side of the gulch. A shape glinted just for a second, metallic, buried in brush. Not tent fabric this time, not natural. "Pause it," Mia said. Her voice cracked, but no one moved until she repeated it louder. Jordan froze the frame, enhanced. The shape resolved. It was a bumper, rusted, half swallowed by moss. The chrome caught the drone's camera like a signal mirror. Cole felt the hair rise on his arms. That's a vehicle, in a place no vehicle should ever be. And if there was a vehicle, there might have been people, living there, waiting there. The search wasn't just for 5 hikers anymore. Fresh boot tracks in Devil's Gulch. A rusted vehicle buried deep where no road leads. The map no longer told a story of just missing hikers. It hinted at someone else riding in the margins. Locals had a name for the gulch. They called it Devil's Stair. Not on any official map, not in the ranger handbooks. Just a name whispered in bars and hunting cabins, on the porch of weather-beaten houses where old men chewed tobacco and told stories. "Stairway straight down," one logger had said. "You miss a step, you don't stop till the river takes you." The name fit. The place wasn't built for people. Cole sent 2 teams down the slope at first light. Ropes, harnesses, helmets, cautious as surgeons. The air was colder in the gulch than on the ridge, thick, heavy, as if it had been trapped for decades. Sound didn't carry. Shouts came back broken. Even the dogs hesitated. Jordan flew the drone again, hovering over their descent. The monitor flickered between trees, cliffs, the blue ruin of the tent and the glint of that bumper wedged in moss. "Ford," one ranger muttered. "Early 80s. How the hell would it get down here?" No road led in. No track led out. The gulch was sealed by rock on all sides, unless someone had brought it in piece by piece. The vehicle wasn't empty. Through shattered glass and vines, a ranger's light caught a shape inside. A seatbelt strapped across a skeleton slumped against the wheel. Metal tags still hung from the keys, the ignition frozen in place. "Not our hikers," Cole said, "too old, bones bleached, clothes decades gone." But it proved something else. People had been in this gulch long after the mines closed, people who stayed or tried to. The deeper the team moved, the stranger it became. Timber walls braced the earth in jagged squares, remnants of shafts hand-dug by miners over a century ago. Boards blackened with age, some collapsed, others still held. The gulch was honeycombed with tunnels, sealed in places, gaping in others. Mia stood at the rim with binoculars. She couldn't descend, but she watched. Every motion, every glint of light off a helmet, her knuckles white against the railing. The team reached the first shaft entrance. A board had been pried off recently, fresh splinters raw against the weathered wood. Something or someone had forced it open. Inside was colder still. Damp air rolled out like breath. Their lights caught marks on the walls, carved letters, shaky but deliberate. "Keep out, miners." Not paint, not chalk, knife marks, jagged and deep. Cole crouched, tracing the grooves with his gloved hand. The wood splintered under pressure. "This wasn't carved 100 years ago," he said quietly. "This is recent." Further inside, the beam of a flashlight swept over objects scattered in the dirt. A tin can, a broken lantern, scraps of fabric that might once have been a blanket, and something newer still, a crushed cigarette butt, filter still white, ash barely scattered. Jordan checked his footage again. He slowed the frames of the night before, past the tent, past the bumper, into the black mouth of the shaft. For 1 second, less than that, something glowed. A pinprick of orange, like a coal, like a fire not yet dead. He froze the frame, zoomed, grain distorted, but it was there, a light from inside the mine. Mia's breath caught in her throat. Someone's down there. Cole didn't answer. He looked back at the shaft, at the carved warning, at the darkness that seemed too patient. The wind shifted, carried a sound up the gulch, faint, rhythmic, knocking, 3 knocks, then silence. The rescuers froze, dogs whined. Even the air felt like it stopped. "Echo?" one ranger asked. But echoes don't knock in threes. Inside Devil's Stare, the team finds fresh splinters, carved warnings, and the impossible glow of a dying fire. Then the sound rises, 3 deliberate knocks from the dark, as if something or someone is answering back. The tent had waited 5 years. It didn't collapse, it clung. Blue fabric shredded, edges curled like old skin. Poles snapped, bent, then frozen into angles that made no sense anymore. Rain had eaten through the seams. Moss spread like a disease across the floor. But inside it was still theirs. A damp sleeping bag balled in a corner. A water bottle with initials scratched into plastic. A wrapper of trail mix, faded but legible. Then something heavier. A sketchbook, Sophia's. The cover warped by rain, but the graphite lines inside still lived. A creek twisting through trees. The angle of a peak drawn over and over as if she couldn't let it go. Quick portraits of faces, Caleb, Marcus, Dylan, half-finished, blurred by water but unmistakable. The last page was darker, pressed hard into the paper, shapes that looked like tunnels, arrows pointing down. Words smeared but still readable. Day 12. Food rationed. Dylan can't walk. Caleb coughing. We stay together. Mia touched the page like it might warm. Her brother's face sketched by someone else's hand. Proof. Pain. A breadcrumb left behind in pencil. The team kept searching. They found Dylan's Lucky Charm keychain, a cheap plastic clover cracked at the stem. They found Marcus's bandana, striped red and black, knotted and stiff. And at the far edge of the tent floor, half buried in silt, a small leather-bound book. A ledger. Not Sophia's, not any of the group's. The cover was cracked, corners flaking, but inside the handwriting was neat, precise. Dated, not 2016, earlier, much earlier, overlap event. August 1994, subject entered gulch. Never exited, salt levels failing, voices persistent. Page after page, incident reports written like rules, some crossed out, some circled. A word that repeated often enough to feel deliberate, overlap. Cole flipped through the entries. His brow tightened with each line. These weren't hiker notes. These were records. Someone had been logging disappearances. Jordan adjusted the drone feed. He zoomed into the shaft entrance again. On the wall, half hidden by shadows, another mark came into view. Not letters this time, not English. Symbols, circles inside triangles. Scratched deep, then painted over, then scratched again. The wind cut through the gulch. It sounded almost like a breath. Mia clutched the ledger to her chest. She didn't know why. It felt heavy, but not with weight, with memory, with warning. Then came the sound again, scratching. Not outside the shaft, not echo from rock above them. On the reinforced ceiling beams, rhythmic, patient, as if something was waiting for them to look up. The dogs barked and pulled at their leads. The rescuers froze, lights raised. The scratching grew louder, steadier, deliberate. Something alive, something aware. Cole's hand tightened on his radio. "Pull back," he ordered, but no one moved, not yet, because in the dark, just above the carved warning, a new sound joined the scratching. A voice, low, calm. It spoke only two words: "Go below." Inside the torn tent they find Sophia's sketches, personal belongings, and a chilling ledger documenting disappearances long before 2016. Then from the shaft above comes the sound of scratching, and a voice that should not be there, whispering, "Go below." The voice still clung to the air. Go below, but below wasn't the problem. It was who was already there. Cole ordered a pullback, ropes coiled, helmets turned. The shaft yawned, patient as a mouth that knew dinner would come eventually. The ledger stayed on the table. Its pages shivered in the draft, whispering their own warnings. Back at the station, rumors bled faster than facts. Every ranger knew the stories. They were never written down. They passed mouth to mouth, campfire to campfire. The Pines have people. Not hikers, not rangers, not families with backpacks and cameras, other people. The kind who built lean toss deep in the timber and stayed, off-grid, off-record, hunting without tags, trapping without licenses, cooking meat that didn't come from stores. Leon Carver's name came up first. 45, a drifter, trespassing rap sheet that stretched from Montana to Idaho to Washington. A man who made camps in places no one else wanted. A man who always had a rifle too old for the year but still clean. Then her, Tessa Hall. No file, no driver's license, no address, a ghost. She appeared only in fragments, a blurry photograph at a roadblock. A ranger's note about a woman near Devil's Gulch, eyes like stone. Together they were the kind of pair people whispered about but never confronted. Poachers, one ranger said. Worse, another answered. Mia listened, arms wrapped around herself. She didn't want legends, she wanted her brother. But the ledger sat in her lap, too real to ignore. The entries weren't myths, they were logs, overlap, subject lost, voices persistent, not just her brother's group, others, maybe dozens. Jordan scrolled his drone footage again. At the far edge of the gulch, hidden under a tangle of fir branches, a shape emerged. Not a car this time, a structure. Ramshackle, bark and tin. A lean-to, fresh cigarette butts scattered in the dirt nearby. Still white, still recent. Cole sent a small team out to the coordinates. They moved quiet, slow. The pines swallowed sound. The lean-to sagged, patched with a blue tarp too clean for weather wear. Inside, a bed of pine needles pressed flat. A pile of cans, labels peeling but dates clear, 2016, 2017. Not ancient, not forgotten. And nailed into one support beam a strip of cloth, red and black stripes. Marcus's bandana. The air collapsed in Mia's chest. Proof again. Proof of something she didn't want proved. The team kept digging. A snare line, rusted but set with care. Wire twisted into cruel loops. A poacher's work, a trap waiting for the wrong step. Then another mark, carved into bark this time. L+T, initials, fresh. Cole ran a hand down his face. He'd been in the park 25 years. He'd pulled lost hikers out of creeks, carried broken bones down ridges, zipped bags that should have stayed unzipped. But this wasn't nature. This was choice. They weren't alone, he said. His voice was low, almost a growl. Jordan spoke without lifting his eyes from the footage. Someone still isn't. The dogs whined, sniffing at the edge of camp. Their handlers pulled them back. The wind shifted, carrying a scent none of them could name. Pine, smoke, something metallic. The night deepened around the gulch. Shadows layered upon shadows. From the trees came a sound, not an animal, not wind. Footsteps, measured, slow, stopping just beyond the circle of their lights. The evidence pointed to Leon and Tessa, off-grid predators living in the pines. The ledger tied vanishings together. And now, with Marcus's bandana nailed into wood and footsteps circling in the dark, the rescuers realized the gulch wasn't empty. Someone was still out there watching. The mine breathed cold. Air that remembered centuries. Air that remembered screams. The rescuers stood at the threshold. Lights trembled against timber beams slick with moss. The words "go below" still scraped through their skulls, though no one had spoken them since. Inside they found more signs. A fire pit made of stones, ash still clumped, not 5 years old, fresher. A crude table, planks laid across old rails, on it a rusty can opener. Beside it bones, not human. Deer, elk, small things picked clean. But the ledger was right. Someone had lived here, recently. Mia pressed a hand to her mouth. She wasn't supposed to be inside, but no one stopped her. No one dared. She looked at the walls, at the gouges cut by desperate hands, names, carved letters that didn't finish. Caleb died, then broken wood, Sophia's handwriting too. The curves were softer, cleaner, but frantic. Stay together. Except they hadn't. Deeper in, the team found evidence of the split. 2 bedrolls pressed together. 3 on the opposite side of the shaft. Separate camps. Cole crouched by a patch of dirt where boot prints still lingered. Heavy, wide, not hikers, not rescuers, bigger, rougher. Leon. The pieces began to tell a story, not all of it, just enough to hurt. The hikers had tried to hold on. They'd rationed food, tended wounds, Caleb's ribs, Dylan's shattered ankle, Marcus's split scalp, Sophia sketching maps by dim firelight, Riley binding wounds, whispering promises. Then Leon and Tessa appeared. Not as saviors, not as rescuers, as jailers. The logbook pages confirmed it. Past day 47, Marcus's handwriting stopped. Sophia's took over. The words changed, shorter, tighter, fear inside every stroke. 2 strangers found us. They say miners. They bring food, but want more. Caleb says don't trust. Dylan begs for help. Marcus argues. I draw. Riley listens. The strangers whisper when they think we sleep. Mia's hands shook as she read aloud. Her voice broke, but she didn't stop. Day 52, Caleb weak. Dylan worse, strangers angry, they want us to dig, they want us below, we are not rescuing, we are working. Caleb says fight, Marcus agrees, but Riley looks at me and says not yet. The team followed the shaft deeper. At one point the timbers gave way to rock, hand-chiseled, black veins glinting under flashlight. Pickaxes rusted against the walls, buckets overturned. A forced labor site. They made them dig, Cole muttered. God help them. The further they went, the more desperate the markings. A smear of blood on stone, a bandage stiff with dried maroon, a carved phrase in jagged English, no more trust. Then at the end of one tunnel, the floor dipped, a shallow pit. Inside bones, 3 sets, clothing tatters still clung. A hoodie, a jacket, a bandana. Dental records would confirm later, but they didn't need later. Caleb, Dylan, Marcus. Mia dropped to her knees. The cry that left her throat wasn't a scream, it was something older, something the gulch would keep forever. Cole put a hand on her shoulder, but it was useless. Comfort doesn't work when the dead are right in front of you, but even then the story wasn't finished, because Sophia and Riley weren't there. And above the pit, scratched into stone, fresher than the rest, were words burned into memory. We run tonight. Storm hides us. If we fail, forgive us. Cole whispered the only truth left. They split. The men didn't make it. The women, they tried. Somewhere deeper in the tunnels, air moved, not a draft, a sigh. The rescuers raised their lights. Shadows stretched back, and something moved. A footstep, bare, heavy, slow. In the tunnels, 3 friends lay in shallow graves, but Sophia and Riley's trail continues. Carved words promise escape, but the tunnels are not empty. Someone still walks them. Storms can be mercy. Storms can be cover. The journal said it first. We run tonight. Storm hides us. Sophia's sketches grew frantic, lines jagged, trees bent sideways in graphite. Raindrops stained the pages, but the words stayed. East, ridge, river. It wasn't just a direction. It was a promise. A desperate map drawn under the watch of 2 captors who believed storms would trap their prey. But storms also erase footprints. Cole traced the words on the damp paper. East, ridge, river, over and over until it no longer felt like a compass but a prayer. Mia clung to the page. If her brother had died here, then Sophia and Riley had lived long enough to try. That mattered. That meant something could still matter. Jordan lifted the drone again, sending it skimming over treetops. He followed the gulch eastward. The screen shook in the wind, grainy gray. Then there, a line cut through the forest. A logging road, old, abandoned, half swallowed by brush. The perfect path for someone running blind through rain. The team moved out, ropes packed, dogs leashed, radios hissing. The ridge was steep, slick with moss, pines pressed in, their roots clutching at boots. Every step upward felt like betrayal, leaving the graves behind, but every step forward carried the women closer. Halfway up, a volunteer found fabric snagged on a branch, pale blue, nylon torn clean. Sophia's pack. Cole bagged it, labeled it, but Mia didn't need labels. She knew it was hers. Further east, the dogs picked up scent, not strong, not fresh, but human, too. The handlers murmured soft encouragement, but the animals pulled hard, dragging them toward the ridge. And there it was, at the top, half hidden in mud, a boot print, smaller than Leon's, narrow, slanted at the heel, 2 sets side by side, one dragging, one steady, Riley supporting Sophia. Mia knelt, tracing the outline with her fingertips. The print filled her hand. She imagined Sophia limping, Riley bracing, both refusing to stop. The trail led to the logging road, wide enough for trucks once, now only ghosts. The road curved east, swallowed by forest, and nailed into a tree at the fork another sign, a strip of metal, bent, rusted, marked with 2 letters, R.B. Riley Brooks. It wasn't an accident, it was left. A breadcrumb, a signal, a plea. Cole whispered, "They made it this far." But further down the road, the drone caught something else. Not breadcrumbs, not hope, tracks, deep tire ruts, old but not 5 years old. Someone had driven here, through this forest, past this ridge, and along the edge of the road a second set of footprints. Larger, heavy, parallel to the women's trail. They hadn't run alone. The storm may have hidden them from the sky, but not from eyes already on the ground. The wind shifted through the ridge. Pine needles hissed like voices. Jordan lowered the drone. The feed went dark, and from the forest beyond the logging road came the faint echo of a laugh. Not cruel, not mocking. Worse, patient. Sophia and Riley's escape trail is clear east to the ridge toward the river, but the tire tracks and heavy footprints prove someone else followed. And in the silence of the Cascades, a laugh lingers, waiting. Hospitals don't smell like hope. They smell like bleach, like silence stretched too thin. The report came first. A woman found wandering outside Spokane in 2019. No ID, no name, no words. She was barefoot, clothes torn, hair dark, streaked with gray that didn't match her age. Eyes vacant as if they were watching something only she could see. The intake sheet called her Jane Doe. The staff called her the Silent One. For years, she sat in a care facility tucked between wheat fields and rolling hills. She did not speak, she did not write, she flinched at thunder, she refused meat, she clawed at the walls when the lights flickered. They thought she was a ghost that breathed, until the DNA test. It was routine, almost bureaucratic. A detective cross-checked missing persons against unidentified patients. Swabs, lab work, a match. Sophia Kine. Mia got the call at 2:17 a.m. The voice on the other end was steady, but Mia's world split down the middle. Relief collided with dread. Alive, but what kind of alive? She drove through rain that blurred the freeway lights into ribbons. Every mile felt stolen. Every exit whispered, "Turn back, you're not ready." She didn't turn back. At the facility, she found her sister's friend sitting in a chair too large for her frame. Sophia's body was there, her face was there, but her voice was gone. Mia sat across from her, photo in hand, the group at the trailhead. 5 smiles under fir trees. She slid it across the table. Sophia's eyes flicked down, her gaze lingered on Caleb's face, on Dylan, on Marcus. Her fingers hovered over Riley, her lips moved, barely. A whisper shaped like a name. Riley. One word, the first in years. Mia's chest broke open. She reached across the table, gripping Sophia's cold hands. "It's me," she whispered. "You're safe." But safety wasn't real. Not yet, doctors explained. Malnourished scars, bones healed wrong, frostbite that left toes pale, brittle, and deeper wounds, trauma that rewired her brain. Sophia drew, though, give her paper, and she drew. Always the same, trees, cabins, mines, and one word scratched into every margin: East. Investigators combed her sketches. Among them one stood out, a cabin on a ridge, windows boarded, a river cutting past, arrows pointing away. Riley's trail. Cole leaned over the drawing. He knew the place. An old homestead near Crystal Basin, long abandoned, marked on maps as a ruin. If she made it here, he said, then Riley did too. Mia touched Sophia's shoulder. Her sister's friend blinked, tears carving lines through dust on her cheeks. The doctors called it progress. Mia called it a heartbeat. Sophia began to write in fragments, short, jagged sentences. Storm night. Leon angry, Tessa screaming. We ran east. River, she carried me. Mia whispered the truth Sophia couldn't. Riley had been the anchor. Riley had kept her alive, but anchors sink with the ship. Cole knew it too. If Sophia survived, he said, then Riley's story isn't finished. We follow east, we follow the river. That night Mia dreamed of her brother, of him pointing at a map, smiling, confident, but when she looked closer the map was blank. Only the word scratched over and over, east. And in the dream she heard it again, a laugh, low, patient, from the pines. Sophia is alive but broken, her voice a whisper of Riley's name. Her sketches point east, toward the river and an abandoned cabin. The rescue is no longer for the five, it is for the last one. Riley's trail begins. Maps lie, but rivers don't. The river Sophia drew was real, a thin silver vein cutting through the eastern edge of the Cascades. It spilled into Crystal Basin, a lake choked by mist and framed by cliffs that looked like teeth. Cole led the team along the logging road. Mud swallowed boots. Branches clawed at sleeves. The air grew colder, heavier, as if the forest knew what waited. The dogs caught scent first. They pulled east, tails stiff, noses low. Their whines sharpened into urgency. Then someone saw it, half submerged near the basin shore. A canoe, rusted, splintered, on its hull scratched deep with something sharp were two letters, R.B., Riley Brooks. Mia dropped to her knees in the wet earth. She pressed her palm against the metal as if the initials could still hold warmth. She made it, she whispered. God, she made it this far. Cole ordered a perimeter. Evidence bags came out. Photos snapped. The canoe was no accident. It was deliberate. A message. Further along the shore, under a caved-in pine, they found more. A lean-to, crude but real. Logs stacked, covered with rotting canvas. Inside, blankets stiff with age, a hunting knife dulled by use, and a diary, Riley's handwriting. The ink had run in places, but the words were still legible. Day 125 made it to the river. Sophia hurt bad, left her near a road, told her to wait, kept going, alone now. Day 129, food low, found canoe, scratched my name, if they find it they'll know. Day 132, storm again, voices in the trees, not wind, not animals. Day 135, I don't know if anyone is coming, but I'll keep moving, east, always east. Mia read aloud until her voice cracked. She clutched the pages as if they might dissolve. Riley had been alive for months, fighting, searching, but the last entry cut sharp. Day 138, they are close, too close, no more running, pray someone finds this. Cole stood in the doorway of the lean-to, his jaw tightened. She wasn't just running from the wilderness, she was being hunted. The wind shifted. From across the basin came a sound, low, hollow, a crack against wood, like someone hitting a tree with the flat of an axe. Once, twice, pausing. The dogs growled. Their handlers tightened leashes. Jordan raised binoculars. Across the water, at the edge of the tree line, a figure moved. Tall, shouldered, paused, then stepped back into the dark. Mia's chest seized. Did you see? But the figure was gone. Only ripples on the water remained. The team turned back to the diary. On the last page, smeared with mud, a final line tilted sideways. Don't trust the man with the limp. The silence that followed felt heavier than thunder. The canoe marked with R.B. Riley's diary, proof she lived for months. A warning scrawled in fading ink. Don't trust the man with the limp. And across Crystal Basin, a shadow stepped into the trees and disappeared. The diary warned about a limp, and the Cascades remembered. 3 days into the Crystal Basin search, a volunteer flagged something half buried under pine needles. A shallow rise in the soil, too neat, too deliberate. They dug, first bone, then more. The skeletons curled together, one male, one female. No markers, no ID, but bullets don't lie. Both skulls carried the same wound. Execution shots. Cole crouched over the remains as forensic techs worked. The metallic smell of disturbed soil clung to the air. He didn't need lab results to know. This wasn't nature. This was choice. Near the shallow grave under a mossed log they found it. A revolver, rust-bitten, heavy, .38 caliber. The serial number was still legible. Records later confirmed it. Registered to Leon Carver, 2015. The drifter with trespass charges. The poacher everyone pretended not to see. The man with the limp. Mia stared at the weapon through the clear evidence bag. Her chest tightened until she couldn't breathe. This was the gun that had ended someone, maybe many, but whose graves lay here. Leon and Tessa themselves, or their victims. Forensics moved fast. Soil samples dated decomposition to late 2017, maybe early 2018. Around the same time, Sophia and Riley were still on the run. One bullet hole had bone splinter outward. Suicide, execution, theories tangled. Cole's voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed him. If these are Leon and Tessa, then the women escaped, at least for a while. But if someone else pulled the trigger, who was left hunting? Further out, 50 yards beyond the graves, they found a lean ring of stones, a fire pit. Cold now, but carbon-dated by smell alone. Someone had cooked here long after 2018. Jordan swept his drone above the site, camera tilting. The image stuttered, then froze on something metallic near the basin edge. He zoomed in. A shell casing. 38, not old, shined like it hadn't been weathered more than a few years. The team bagged it, logged it. The casing linked to the revolver by ballistics. Cole's face went pale. Someone fired this gun again after Leon was dead. Mia whispered, then who was holding it? The forest didn't answer. The wind carried only the hiss of pine needles like voices half heard. That night in camp, the dogs barked toward the ridge. Low, guttural, a warning. The handlers calmed them, but the barking wouldn't stop. Their eyes stayed fixed on the tree line. When lights swept across the slope, something flashed. Metal, a reflection, brief. Like the glint of a gun barrel retreating into dark. Two bodies in a shallow grave. A revolver tied to Leon Carver. But the .38 had been fired again long after Leon was gone. And in the tree line above the camp, metal flashed once, then vanished, as if the weapon still had a hand to hold it. Silence can last longer than storms, but not forever. Sophia sat in the facility's quiet room, sunlight thin through frosted glass. For weeks she had said nothing. Only drawn pines, mines, tunnels that twisted like veins. Then one morning her lips parted. Words rasped out, dry as stone. She saved me. Mia leaned forward, eyes burning. Riley, Sophia nodded once. It broke the dam. Her words came in fragments. Broken but clear enough. The avalanche. Caleb hurt. Dylan couldn't stand. Marcus bleeding. We made fire, then they came. Her eyes went flat, her hands trembled. Leon, she whispered. Tessa said help, brought food, not help. She pressed her palms to her ears, rocking. They made us dig, always dig, gold and black rock, pickaxes heavy, we coughed blood. Caleb begged, Dylan prayed, Marcus fought. Riley held me. Mia reached across the table, squeezing her hand. What happened, Sophia? Her breath came in sharp bursts. They split us, men one side, us the other. Night of storm. Leon hit Caleb, Tessa screamed at Marcus. Dylan cried, I drew maps in dirt so I wouldn't forget. Her voice cracked, her face folded like paper in rain. They killed them, they killed my brother too. Mia's chest hollowed. She wanted to argue, to refuse, to deny. But Sophia's voice didn't shake from lying, it shook from truth. Then came the memory of escape. Storm loud, thunder hit us. Riley pulled me. My wrist broke in fall. She carried me anyway. We ran east, always east. Her eyes flicked to the sketch pinned to the wall, the cabin by the river, the one investigators had found. I slept there. She left, said she'd find road, said she'd bring help. Sophia's throat tightened. She never came back. Cole listened from the doorway. His face was stone, but his knuckles were white. She left you near the logging road, he said softly. That's where we found you years later. Sophia nodded. Then her gaze dropped to the table. She traced invisible shapes with her finger. There was another. Mia froze. Another. Sophia's voice dropped to a whisper. Not Leon, not Tessa, someone else watched us, always just beyond fire, limping. The room felt cold. Cole stepped inside. Sophia, are you sure? Her eyes snapped to his. For the first time they blazed. I never forget a shadow. She grabbed a pencil, scrawling fast across paper. A figure, broad, bent at one knee, a rifle slung across his shoulder, and behind him two smaller shapes, unclear, blurred. Mia swallowed hard. What is that? Sophia's hand shook as she underlined the sketch. Not us, she whispered. Not then, someone else. The room stilled, the implication cut deep. If Leon and Tessa were dead by 2017, then someone else had inherited the tunnels, someone still hunting. Outside, storm clouds thickened over the Cascades, casting shadows across the facility windows. And Sophia spoke again, her voice breaking but sure. He's not gone, he's still there. Sophia's silence shatters. She names Leon and Tessa as captors, but reveals a third figure, a man with a limp, still hunting in the gulch. Her drawings show shadows not from her group, but from another time, another set of victims. The search pushed east. Every path narrowed, every tree leaned closer. Sophia's drawings had pointed the way, a ridge above the basin, a boarded cabin, arrows scratched toward the horizon. The team climbed with ropes, mud sliding under boots. Dogs pulled, breath steaming in the cold air. Mia followed, silent, carrying the photo of 5 friends that now felt like a relic. At the ridge top they found it. A cabin, sagging, roof caved in on one side. Windows nailed shut. A door half-hinged, swaying in the wind like it wanted to speak but had forgotten how. Inside, the air was stale. Old smoke clung to the rafters. A stove rusted into silence. On the floor, blankets stiff with mold. A cup, enamel chipped. And under the corner of the bed frame, almost buried in dirt, something caught the light. A chain, thin, silver. Mia bent down, fingers trembling. She pulled it free. A locket. She knew it instantly. Riley's, the one with her fiancé's photo inside. Her knees buckled. She pressed it to her chest like a heartbeat. Tears blurred the world until all that remained was silver in her hand. Cole crouched beside her, voice low. It was left for someone to find. When they opened it, the photo was still there, faded, creased. A young man smiling from another life, but there was something else too. A scrap of paper, folded small, tucked behind the photo, waterlogged, brittle. They unfolded it with gloves, breath held. Words bled but legible. If found, tell them I tried. East Ridge Cabin. Mia's hands shook harder. She made it here, she left this for us. The team fanned out, every corner of the cabin turned, more traces, a crude bed of pine needles. Scratches in the wall, tally marks, at least 50, and near the stove a boot print, smaller, lighter, Riley's, but on the far wall another mark, carved deep, furious, a single word. Close, Cole stared at it, his jaw clenched. Someone else was here, someone followed her even here. Outside, the wind shifted. Clouds broke for a moment, sending a pale shaft of light across the ridge, and in that light, just beyond the cabin, something jutted from the soil, a pile of stones, deliberate, covered in moss. The dogs pulled toward it, barking sharp. The team dug, hands fast, hearts faster. Under the stones, wrapped in damp cloth, they found a small cache. A knife, a canteen, a photo of the group, faces scratched out except one. Riley's remained. Mia's breath came ragged. Why only her? No one answered. The forest pressed closer. The ridge seemed to lean. Cole whispered what everyone feared. Because someone wanted her alive. The East Ridge cabin yields Riley's locket, her note, and a photo of the group defaced until only her face remained. Proof she made it this far, and proof someone else wanted her to keep going. Grief can paralyze, or it can move. Mia refused paralysis. The cabin on East Ridge still haunted her dreams. Riley's locket pressed into her palm, the photo with faces scratched away, the single word carved into the wall, close. She could have drowned in it. She almost did, but one thought clawed her back. If drones found the tent, they could find others. She founded a non-profit. She called it Echoes of the Lost. The name came easy. It felt right. Every hiker who vanished left an echo. Families listening in silence, desperate for that echo to be answered. The first fundraiser was small. A church basement, coffee too bitter, muffins too dry, but the room filled. Parents of missing kids, wives of climbers who never returned, brothers who still searched. Sophia sat in the front row, silent but present, her eyes dark, her sketchbook open. She drew while Mia spoke. Tunnels, trees, always the shadows. Technology missed them once, Mia said. But now it doesn't have to. Drones, thermal imaging, satellites. We can make sure no one else vanishes without a trace. Applause thundered, not polite, hungry. The story spread. Local news first, then regional, then national. Reporters wanted the tent photo, the locket, the diary pages. Mia gave them just enough, never the worst. She kept some truths folded away like knives. Donations surged. Enough to buy drones, train volunteers, build a network that reached into every park, trail, and canyon lip. The first success came fast. A climber stranded on a ledge in Rainier. Thermal cameras spotted him at dawn. Rescuers pulled him out by noon. Alive. It mattered. One life pulled back from silence. One echo answered. Mia cried when she got the call. Not just for the man, for her brother, for Riley, for the others who would never get pulled back. Sophia cried too, but differently. Her sketches grew sharper. Less chaos. More detail, cabins, mines. She was remembering in pieces, and each drawing cut Mia deeper. The organization grew. A website, forums where families shared stories. Has anyone searched this canyon? My sister vanished near here. My father last seen there. Echoes stacked on echoes, but with growth came shadows. An envelope arrived at the office. No return address. Inside, a single Polaroid, the East Ridge cabin, taken recently. A fresh angle, a new perspective, scrawled across the back in block letters. Not all echoes want to be found. Mia froze. Cole read it twice. Jordan checked metadata. Nothing. It was a warning or a threat, or both. The next day, volunteers flew a drone over Devil's Gulch. In the footage, for one brief second, a figure appeared at the tree line, tall, limping, rifle slung. The man Sophia had drawn, the man the diary warned about. He wasn't a ghost. He was still there. Echoes of the lost saves lives, giving families hope. But a Polaroid and drone footage prove the gulch isn't just haunted by memory. It's still inhabited. The man with the limp watches, alive, waiting. The drone footage didn't lie, but screens can only haunt. Boot prints make it real. A week after the Polaroid arrived, Cole led a team back into Devil's Gulch. New drones overhead, fresh dogs on the line. The air was brittle with frost. The pines stood too still. They moved slow, methodical, every branch catalogued, every stone photographed. Then a shout. Here, track. The team gathered. On a patch of soft earth near the gulch rim, half hidden by needles, pressed clear into mud. A footprint. Not SAR issue, not hiker tread, too deep, too wide, and wrong. The sole was uneven, worn at the heel, one side collapsed. A limp stamped into the dirt itself. Cole crouched, measuring with his hand. Recent, less than 48 hours. The dogs bristled, their hackles rose, they whined and pulled against their leads, noses straining east, toward the shaft. Mia stared at the print. Her stomach turned cold. Sophia's drawing flashed in her head, the bent figure, the rifle slung, not imagination, memory. Someone still living here, Cole said quietly, not past tense. Present. Jordan adjusted the drone. He swept it east, past the shaft mouth, past the ridge. The feed flickered. Grain blurred the image. Then movement, a figure ducking under trees, shoulders broad, gait uneven, limping. The drone shuddered in the wind. The camera lost him, but not before catching one more detail. A cabin roof, tin, rusted, hidden under fur canopy, not marked on any map, not in any ranger archive. Another structure, Jordan said. His voice was flat, like he didn't want to be right. Cole stood. We track it. Tonight we mark coordinates. Tomorrow we go in. Mia's throat was dry, and if he's still there, Cole didn't look at her when he answered. Then we finish what should have ended years ago. That night the team camped at the gulch rim. The air never warmed. The fire sputtered against damp wood. Sometime past midnight the dogs went wild, snarling, barking at the tree line. The volunteers grabbed flashlights, beams cut through mist, and there at the edge of light stood a figure, tall, broad, head tilted, watching. One leg bent, one hand resting on something long, the rifle. The beam flared against his eyes. For a second they glowed pale, animal, then he stepped back. Gone. Only the echo of footsteps in pine needles remained. The footprint in the gulch proves the man with the limp is real, alive and watching. And when night falls, the search team sees him at the tree line, rifle in hand, before he vanishes back into the dark. Answers don't always come from the forest. Sometimes they wait in dust. A retired ranger tipped Cole off. Check Bellingham, he said. Old storage unit, rented under one of Tessa's aliases. We logged it once years ago, never opened. The unit was cold, concrete floors, smell of oil and mildew, the lock cracked with a single twist of bolt cutters. Inside, boxes stacked like forgotten tombstones. They pried the first one open. Clothes, flannel, worn, boots, mud still clinging after all these years. The second box was heavier. Gold, small nuggets in film canisters, wrapped in tissue, sold illegally, smuggled from mines, never meant to be touched again. At the bottom of the box, a ledger. This one wasn't hiker's notes. It wasn't Sophia's sketches. It was business, names, dates, amounts, transactions, gold sold, guns traded, meat shipped. Some names blacked out with thick ink, others circled, and in the margin an initial, L, not Leon, not this time. This L was linked to addresses far from Washington, Montana, Idaho, Oregon, a network, not just two people in a gulch. Mia flipped the pages with shaking hands. One entry caught her breath. Oct 2016, 5, alive, East Gulch, deliverable. Her skin went cold, deliverable. They hadn't just been captives, they had been currency. Jordan scanned the last pages, his face tightened. Look here, March 2017. Two names, Sophia. Riley, next to them, held, next to Caleb, Dylan, Marcus, cleared. The words bled off the page like knives. Mia turned away, her brother's name crossed out like an item on a grocery list. Cole slammed the ledger shut, his voice shook for the first time. This wasn't just survivalists, this was trade, human trade. The room went still. The hum of the storage facility, lights pressed down on them. Then Cole's phone buzzed. A blocked number, he answered. Silence at first. Then a voice, low, almost a growl. You're reading the wrong book. The line went dead. Cole stared at the phone. The echo of that voice crawled across the room. Mia's heart hammered. Who was it? No one answered, because they all knew. The man with the limp still had a voice, and he wasn't hiding anymore. The Bellingham storage unit reveals the miner's ledger, evidence of an organized trade, not just survivalist madness. But a phone call proves the network isn't dead. The man with the limp is alive, watching, and he knows they're close. Not every story ends clean. Some end jagged. Some end with silence that keeps breathing. The miner's ledger was enough to force hearings, enough to ignite headlines. Illegal gold trade in national parks. Human trafficking links in the Cascades. The world finally looked, but looking isn't the same as knowing. Forensics confirmed the shallow graves. Caleb, Dylan, Marcus. Their names etched into official reports, into plaques, into obituaries. Mia stood over the papers and felt nothing but hollow. Sophia testified in fragments, her voice shook. She told of Leon, of Tessa, of the digging, of Riley carrying her through storm and stone. Every word bled, but it was truth. Riley's trail ended in the East Ridge cabin, her diary, her locket. Her initials scratched into metal, but her body had never been found. That absence burned brighter than any grave. Echoes of the lost grew. Drones launched from ridge to ridge. Families clutched radios like lifelines. More people were saved. More echoes answered, but the mountains still whispered. The man with the limp was never caught. Some nights drone footage caught flashes. A figure at tree line, a cabin roof where no cabin should be. Other nights, nothing. The forest doesn't give up all its secrets. Mia visited the memorial at Easy Pass. A plaque bolted into stone. In memory of Caleb Harlow, Dylan Reyes, Marcus Lang, Sophia Kine, and Riley Brooks. Lost but found in spirit. Flowers lay at its base. Handwritten notes. Tokens from strangers who had read the story and claimed a piece of grief as their own. Sophia stood beside her, sketchbook pressed to her chest. She had begun drawing again, not just tunnels and trees, faces too. Sometimes Riley smiling, sometimes Caleb's curly hair under a beanie, sometimes shadows at the edge of both. Mia asked her once, "Do you believe he's still out there?" Sophia's pencil paused, her eyes darkened. "Yes," she said, "but it doesn't matter. Riley saved me, that's what matters." Mia nodded, but at night when wind rattled her apartment windows, she thought of footsteps in pine needles, measured, slow, patient. Closure came on paper, but peace never did, because some stories don't end, they echo, and in the Cascades, echoes last forever. Final image, dawn over Easy Pass, fog lifting slow, the plaque gleaming wet with morning dew, and just beyond the tree line the faint shape of a man standing still, watching.